I never thought I'd be the kind of person to stand up to my mother-in-law. For 6 years, I'd bitten my tongue, swallowed my pride, and smiled through her passive-aggressive comments. But when she told me I wasn't invited to her 60th birthday celebration because I wasn't really part of the family, something inside me finally clicked into place. My name is Maya, and I'm 28 years old. I work as a graphic designer in Toronto, and I've been married to Connor for 6 years now. We met in university, fell head over heels, and got married right after graduation. His family seemed nice at first. His mother, Diane, was all smiles and warm hugs during our engagement. His father, Richard, was quiet but kind. Connor's older sister, Bethany, was friendly enough, though we never really connected on a deeper level. But the mask started slipping about 3 months after the wedding. It began with small comments. Diane would mention how Bethany's homemade pies were so much better than store-bought ones. Right after I'd brought dessert to Sunday dinner, she'd talk about how important it was for women to prioritize family over career, then ask me pointed questions about my work hours. She'd reminisce about Connor's ex-girlfriend from high school, the one who apparently came from a good family and knew how to properly set a table. I tried to brush it off. Connor would apologize on her behalf, saying his mother was just old-fashioned and set in her ways. He'd promised to talk to her, but nothing ever changed. Richard would look uncomfortable but never said a word. Bethany would smirk behind her wine glass. The worst part was how Diane did it all with a smile. She never outright insulted me. She just made sure I knew I didn't quite measure up, that I was somehow lacking in ways that mattered to their family. And because she was so subtle about it, calling it out made me feel petty and oversensitive. Then came the financial situation that nobody in the family knew about except me. 3 years ago, Diane and Richard's house needed major renovations. The foundation was cracking, the roof was leaking, and there were electrical issues that couldn't be ignored. They needed $65,000 to fix everything properly, and they didn't have it. Richard's small accounting firm had taken a hit during the economic slowdown, and their savings were nearly depleted. Connor and I had just received a substantial inheritance from my grandmother. She'd left me $200,000 with specific instructions in her will that it was mine to use as I saw fit, to build the life I wanted. Connor suggested we help his parents. He was stressed about their situation, worried about them losing the house he'd grown up in. I agreed, but I had one condition. I asked that we tell his parents the money was from both of our savings, not specifically from my inheritance. I'd seen how Diane looked down on my family. My parents were immigrants who'd worked blue-collar jobs their whole lives. My grandmother had been a seamstress who'd saved every penny for decades. I knew Diane would find some way to diminish it if she knew the truth, to make it seem less significant, or to hold it over my head. Connor agreed. We transferred $65,000 to his parents, telling them it was from our joint savings and that we wanted to help family. Diane cried tears of gratitude. Richard hugged me for the first time ever. They promised they'd pay us back someday, though we told them not to worry about it. But Diane's behavior toward me didn't improve. If anything, it got worse. She started making comments about how we must be struggling financially, suggesting Connor should ask for a raise or that maybe I should look for a more stable job. She'd offer to buy us groceries when we visited, in a tone that made it sound like charity. She told relatives that Connor had bailed them out with his savings, never mentioning my contribution. I kept my mouth shut. I kept the bank records, the transfer receipts, the email exchanges between Connor and me discussing how much of my inheritance to use. I kept them in a folder on my laptop and tried to forget about them, tried to just move forward and build a relationship with my in-laws. Then, 3 months ago, Diane started planning her 60th birthday party. It was all she could talk about. She wanted a big celebration, a garden party at their newly renovated home with all their friends and family. She hired a caterer, rented fancy tables and chairs, and had a professional photographer lined up. She showed me pictures of the decorations she was planning, asked for my opinion on flowers, and mentioned several times how this would be the social event of the season. I assumed I'd be invited. Why wouldn't I be? I was her daughter-in-law. Connor and I were married. We'd helped save their house. Despite all the tension, I thought I'd at least be included in major family events. 2 weeks before the party, Connor came home from his parents' house, looking uncomfortable. "So, about Mom's birthday party," he started, not meeting my eyes. My stomach dropped. "What about it?" "She said she's keeping it small. Just immediate family. She specifically said that means just blood relatives this year." I stared at him. "What does that mean, Connor?" He finally looked at me, guilt written all over his face. "It means she doesn't want you there, Maya. She said this is a family event, and she wants to keep it intimate. Just her, Dad, Bethany, me, and some of her siblings and their kids. I'm your wife. I am family." "I know. I told her that. I argued with her for an hour. She won't budge. She said it's her birthday, and she gets to decide who she wants there." He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I knew meant he was stressed. "I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. If I don't go, it'll cause a massive family rift. But I don't want to go without you." I could see he was genuinely torn. And I could have made it easier for him by causing a scene, by demanding he choose between me and his mother, by turning this into a battle. But I'd learned something over the past 6 years. Fighting with Diane directly never worked. She was a master at playing the victim, at making me look like the unreasonable one. So, instead, I took a deep breath and said something that shocked him. "It's okay. You should go." Connor's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Yes. It's your mother's birthday. You should be there." "I don't want to cause family drama." I kept my voice calm and even, though inside I was seething. "Tell her I understand, and I hope she has a wonderful celebration." He looked relieved and guilty at the same time. "Are you sure? Because I'll stay home with you if you want." "I'm sure. Go. Celebrate with your family." That night, after Connor fell asleep, I sat at my laptop and opened that folder I'd kept for 3 years. I looked at all the bank records, all the proof of where that $65,000 had really come from. And I started to put together a plan. The next morning, I told Connor I wanted to do something nice for his mother's birthday, even though I wasn't invited. I said I'd put together a memory book of family photos and milestones as a gift, something she could keep forever. He thought it was incredibly gracious of me and offered to help, but I told him I wanted it to be a surprise. What I actually put together was something quite different. I created a beautiful presentation folder, the kind I use for my high-end design clients. The cover was elegant, with the story of 847 Maple Road embossed in gold lettering. That was Diane and Richard's address. The house they'd lived in for 35 years. The house we'd saved. Inside, I included a timeline of the house's history. Photos of Connor and Bethany growing up there. Newspaper clippings from when Richard's accounting firm had celebrated its 20th anniversary. Pictures from various family gatherings and holidays over the years. And then, in the final section, I documented the 2021 crisis and renovation. I included copies of the contractor's estimates. Photos of the foundation damage, the roof leaks, the electrical hazards. I included the quotes they'd received, all showing the $65,000 price tag for the necessary repairs. I included a printout of the bank transfer from my account to theirs, dated March 15, 2021. I included a copy of my grandmother's will, specifically the section leaving me the inheritance. I included email exchanges between Connor and me, where we discussed using my inheritance to help his parents. I included a photo of my grandmother, the immigrant seamstress, whose penny pinching and sacrifice had made that money possible. On the very last page, I wrote a simple note. To the family at 847 Maple Road. This house stands because of the hard work and sacrifice of people you considered not really family. My grandmother saved for 50 years to leave something behind for the family I would build. I chose to share that gift with you because I believed family helps family. I hope you enjoy your celebration in this beautiful home. With love, Maya. I had the folder professionally bound and wrapped it in expensive paper with a silver bow. The day of the party, Connor got dressed in his good suit. I helped him with his tie, kissed him goodbye, and handed him the wrapped folder. "What's this?" he asked. "It's my gift for your mother. I know I'm not invited to the party, but I still wanted to give her something special." Can you make sure she gets it? Maybe ask her to open it when everyone's gathered, so the whole family can see the photos I put together. Connor hugged me tight. You're amazing, you know that? Most women would be furious right now, but you're being so gracious about this. I smiled. I just want your family to appreciate what they have. He had no idea how true that statement was. After he left, I poured myself a glass of wine and waited. I knew Connor would text me updates throughout the event. He always did when we were apart, feeling guilty about going places without me. The first text came an hour after he arrived. Party is in full swing. Mom's in her element. About 30 people here. Wish you were here with me. The second text came 30 minutes later. About to do cake and presents. I'm giving Mom your gift now like you asked. Then nothing. 20 minutes of silence. I sat on the couch, my heart pounding, checking my phone every 30 seconds. Finally, my phone rang. It was Connor. Maya. His voice was strange, tight with emotion I couldn't quite read. You need to tell me something right now. That money we gave my parents 3 years ago. Was that really from your inheritance? All of it? Yes. And my mother knew you weren't invited to this party when she asked me to come? Yes. There was a long pause. I could hear voices in the background, but I couldn't make out words. Then Connor said, I'm coming home. We need to talk. And Maya? My whole family just found out exactly who saved their house. Mom is devastated. Dad is furious with her. Bethany won't even look at her. Aunt Linda called her ungrateful to her face. Connor, I didn't do this to hurt anyone. I just wanted them to know the truth. I know. That's what makes it so much worse for her. You were gracious even now. You called the house beautiful. You said you did it because you believed family helps family. You made her look like exactly what she is. And she can't even be angry at you for it because you didn't say a single cruel word. When Connor came home 2 hours later, he told me everything. Diane had opened the gift in front of everyone, expecting a nice photo album. The family had gathered around to look, and at first, they were enjoying the trip down memory lane. But as she turned the pages and reached the renovation section, her face had changed. She'd gone pale, then red, then pale again. Richard had taken the folder from her hands and read it silently. Then he'd looked at Diane and said, in front of all their friends and family, You excluded the woman who saved our home from your birthday party? Bethany had grabbed the folder next. She'd read the email exchanges, seen the bank records, looked at the photo of my grandmother. Then she'd turned to Diane and asked, You've been telling everyone Connor paid for the renovations with his money. You've been making Maya feel like a charity case while living in a house her inheritance paid to save? Diane had tried to explain, to say she hadn't known, but Connor had interrupted her. He'd told the whole party that yes, she had known. He'd told them about every comment she'd made about me over the years, every subtle dig, every way she'd made me feel less than. He'd told them that I'd asked to keep the inheritance quiet because I knew his mother would use it against me somehow, and that I'd been proven right. Richard had been the one to really drive it home. He'd stood up and told everyone that he was ashamed of his wife, that he'd watched her mistreat me for years and hadn't said enough to stop it, and that he owed me an enormous apology. He'd said that if Diane couldn't see what an incredible woman I was, that was her loss, but she wouldn't be disrespecting me in his presence anymore. Several of Diane's relatives had chimed in, people I'd only met a handful of times. Apparently, Diane had been talking about me behind my back for years, making comments about my background, my family, my career choices. And now they all knew exactly what kind of person I really was, and what kind of person she'd been to me. She's upstairs in her bedroom, Connor told me, sitting beside me on the couch. She won't come down. The party basically ended. Everyone left except Dad and Bethany. They're cleaning up. I didn't mean to ruin her birthday, I said quietly. Yes, you did, Connor said, but he was almost smiling, and she deserved it. Maya, I am so sorry. I should have stood up to her years ago. I should have put my foot down the second she said you weren't invited. I let her treat you like this for 6 years because it was easier than dealing with her drama. I failed you as a husband. I took his hand. You're standing up now. That's what matters. I told her, We're not coming to any more family events until she apologizes to you properly. And I don't mean some half-hearted "I'm sorry you were hurt" nonsense. I mean a real apology, where she acknowledges what she did and why it was wrong. 3 days later, Richard called and asked if he and Diane could come over to talk. I agreed, though my stomach was in knots. They sat in our living room, and I could see immediately that Diane had been crying. Her eyes were red and swollen. Richard looked tired and older than I'd ever seen him. "Maya," Diane started, her voice shaking, "I owe you an apology that I don't even know how to begin to make. What I did was inexcusable. What I've been doing for 6 years is inexcusable. I was threatened by you from the start, and instead of dealing with my own insecurities, I took them out on you." I stayed quiet, letting her continue. "You came from a different background than I expected for Connor. Your parents worked jobs I looked down on, and I'm ashamed of that snobbery. Your grandmother was an immigrant who worked with her hands, and I considered that somehow less valuable than a family with old money or advanced degrees. The truth is, your grandmother showed more character and strength in her lifetime than I've shown in mine. She built something real through sacrifice and hard work, and she raised a family that continued those values." She pulled a tissue from her purse, dabbing at her eyes. "When you and Connor gave us that money to save our house, I should have been on my knees with gratitude. Instead, I twisted it in my mind. I convinced myself that Connor had earned it, that it was his success that saved us. I minimized your contribution because acknowledging it would have meant admitting I'd been wrong about you." Richard put his hand on her shoulder. "I've been complicit in this too, Maya. I saw how Diane treated you, and I didn't call it out strongly enough. I told myself it wasn't my place to interfere between her and her daughter-in-law, but that was cowardice. You're part of our family, and I should have protected you." "Why did you tell me I wasn't invited to the party?" I asked Diane directly. "Why that moment? Why not just quietly not invite me and let Connor come up with an excuse?" Diane looked down at her hands. "Because I wanted to hurt you. I wanted you to know your place. After 6 years of watching Connor love you, seeing how happy you made him, how successful you were in your career, how you never fought back against my comments, I wanted to finally make you react. I wanted to see you upset. I wanted Connor to have to choose, and I was arrogant enough to think he'd choose me." "That's messed up, Mom," Connor said from beside me. "I know," Diane whispered. "I know it is. And Maya, what you did with that presentation folder. I deserved that. You could have screamed at me, caused a scene, made demands. Instead, you just showed everyone the truth with dignity and grace. You made me look exactly like what I am. A petty, insecure woman who mistreated someone who only ever tried to be good to my family. The whole extended family is talking about it," Richard added. "My sister called this morning. She said she's ashamed she didn't see it sooner, that she's ashamed she laughed at some of Diane's comments about you over the years. Bethany is barely speaking to her mother. She told us yesterday that she's always been jealous of you, that watching Diane tear you down made her feel better about her own insecurities." I took a deep breath. "I appreciate you coming here and saying all of this. I do. But I need you to understand that I can't just forget 6 years of being made to feel like I wasn't good enough. I can't forget having to defend my grandmother's legacy to people who looked down on her before they even met her. I can't forget being excluded from my own mother-in-law's birthday party in a house that my grandmother's sacrifice helped save." "I understand," Diane said. "I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve the chance to try to make this right. But I want you to know that I see now what I couldn't see before. You're exactly the kind of woman I should have been proud to have as a daughter-in-law. You're strong, successful, kind, and gracious even when people don't deserve it. Connor is lucky to have you. We all are." We talked for another hour. Diane answered every question I had about specific incidents over the years, acknowledging the hurt behind each one. Richard explained that they were going to couples counseling, because this situation had revealed some deep problems in their marriage that they'd been ignoring. They asked if I'd be willing to come to family therapy sessions with them eventually, and I said I'd think about it. When they left, Connor and I sat together in silence for a long time. "Are you okay?" he finally asked. "I don't know. I'm glad the truth came out. I'm glad your family knows now. But I also feel sad. I wanted them to love me, Connor. I really tried. I know you did. That's what makes my mother's behavior so much worse. You gave her every opportunity to accept you, and she chose not to. That's on her, not you." Over the next few months, things slowly changed. Diane would text me occasionally, never asking for anything, just sending articles she thought I'd find interesting or commenting on my social media posts in supportive ways. Richard made a point of calling me directly to invite me to family dinners, making it clear I was wanted there. Bethany apologized to me over coffee one afternoon, admitting that she'd been complicit in her mother's treatment of me and explaining her own jealousy and insecurity. The extended family was different too. Diane's sister, Linda, invited me to her book club. Richard's brother, Marcus, asked me to design a logo for his new business venture. Suddenly, people who'd barely spoken to me at family events for 6 years were treating me like I'd always been one of them. I don't know if Diane and I will ever have the warm mother-daughter relationship some people have with their in-laws. Too much has happened, too many years of small wounds that scarred over. But there's respect now, and honesty, and she genuinely seems to be trying. The most surprising change was at Thanksgiving, 7 months after the birthday party incident. The whole family was gathered at Diane and Richard's house, about 25 people around their extended dining table and overflow seating in the living room. When it came time for everyone to share what they were grateful for, Diane stood up with a glass of wine in her hand. "I want to say something," she announced, and the room went quiet. "This year, I'm grateful for hard truths and second chances. I'm grateful that some people have the courage to stand up for themselves even when it's difficult. I'm grateful for the sacrifice of people I never got to meet, like Maya's grandmother, whose hard work and foresight helped save the home we're all sitting in right now." She looked directly at me. "Maya, I'm grateful you joined this family, even though I didn't make you feel welcome. I'm grateful you showed me who I'd become and gave me the chance to be better. I'm grateful you love my son, and I'm grateful you're still willing to sit at this table with me after everything I put you through. Thank you." The room was silent for a moment, and then Richard started clapping. Everyone joined in, and I felt Connor squeeze my hand under the table. After dinner, when we were loading the dishwasher together, Diane said quietly, "I've been going to therapy twice a week since the birthday party. Dr. Patterson says I have a lot of insecurity stemming from my own mother's treatment of me, and I've been projecting that onto the women my children bring into the family. She says I was threatened by your success and your confidence because I never developed those things in myself. I'm glad you're working on it," I said carefully. "I want you to know that even if you never fully trust me or feel comfortable around me, I understand why. I broke something between us that might not be fixable, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to prove that I'm better than the woman I was to you." I looked at this 60-year-old woman who'd made me feel small for 6 years, who'd excluded me from her birthday party like a mean girl in high school, who'd benefited from my grandmother's sacrifice while looking down on her memory. And I saw someone genuinely broken by her own actions, genuinely trying to change. "One step at a time," I told her. "That's all we can do." She nodded, tears in her eyes, and we continued loading the dishwasher in companionable silence. Connor and I drove home that night, talking about what had changed and what might still need to heal. We talked about setting better boundaries with his family, about how he needed to be more proactive in defending me rather than reactive. We talked about my own healing process and the anger I still carried. But we also talked about grace and growth. We talked about how people can change when they're confronted with the truth of their own actions. We talked about how my grandmother would have been proud that her legacy led not just to saving a house, but to healing a family. Looking back now, I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret creating that presentation folder or asking Connor to have his mother open it in front of everyone. Some people say I was cruel to embarrass her publicly like that, but I disagree. I didn't lie. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't attack. I simply presented the truth with the same grace and dignity I'd maintained throughout 6 years of subtle cruelty. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stop absorbing other people's toxicity and reflect it back to them with calm clarity. Sometimes, people need to see themselves through other people's eyes to understand the impact of their actions. And sometimes, love means holding people accountable rather than enabling their worst behavior. My grandmother used to tell me that kindness isn't the same as weakness, and dignity isn't the same as doormat. She'd say, Maya, you can be gracious and still require respect. You can be forgiving and still enforce consequences. You can love people and still protect yourself. She was right, and I hope that wherever she is, she knows that her sacrifice didn't just save a house. It taught me that my worth isn't determined by other people's opinions, that my grace doesn't require their approval, and that standing up for myself doesn't mean stooping to cruelty. If you're in a situation where someone makes you feel less than, where someone treats you poorly while benefiting from your kindness, I want you to remember something important. You teach people how to treat you. Accepting mistreatment doesn't make you kind. It makes you complicit in your own diminishment. Setting boundaries doesn't make you difficult. It makes you healthy. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for everyone involved is to stop pretending everything is fine and start insisting on the truth. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in simple, undeniable clarity. That's not cruelty. That's self-respect. And everyone deserves that, no matter what.